and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show. How many games can this guy play and still not score from open play? It's ridiculous. I'm, of course, joking. Nicolas Pepe scoring 2 goals as Arsenal beat Vitoria 3-2 in the Europa League to pick up our 3rd win on the trot in Europe this season. A game of frustration, a game of controversy, especially in terms of the lineup, and a game in which we finally saw our Ivorian record signing smashing 2 goals and maybe start off something a little bit special. Hello to everyone in the live chat. Hello to everyone who has tuned in this evening. Thank you ever so much for taking the time out of a little bit late on a Thursday to come join us and have a bit of a chat about this evening's game. I hope you've had a good day and a good week and enjoyed tonight's game. We enjoyed the last 10 minutes or so, didn't we? Maybe the rest of it was a bit up in there, but we will talk about that and everything to do with it. But thank you ever so much for tuning in. Let's say hello to some of you. Avon, thank you for tuning in. Pepe has arrived, says Josh Gunners Forever. South London's finest B says Emery out. Still with that, and we will talk about that, don't you worry. Cole says we did it in the Arsenal way. Coop Dog says Pepe has arrived. CXVI says Pepe with several E's on the end. Olo says Pepe is here, boys. Yo, Tom says Thomas there. Thank you for tuning in, mate. Thank you for tuning in, Carl. Thank you for tuning in, everyone else. We will get to plenty of your comments throughout the show and answer some of your questions a little bit later on. So let's get straight and stuck into things and react to what was I'm not going to lie, an extremely impressive Vitoria performance. I didn't quite expect the Portuguese side to turn up to the Emirates with that much vigour and fight. Obviously, they hadn't picked up or even scored in the Europa League so far this season, yet they managed to really show off in the stadium. Young Edwards, obviously a former Spurs, not a fan of him for that obvious reason, but obviously he was quite a bright spark in that game and punished us. And it's fair to say that there's a lot of criticism that needs to be aimed at specific individuals on that pitch, but there's also a lot of positives to come from that game. Right at the end, one very obvious one, which we will, of course, talk about. But let's start off talking about the lineup and where we started off. So lineup comes out and I'm confused. I'm confused and a little bit unsurprised, actually. I'm confused because of certain decisions that are still being made. I still cannot get my head around the midfield choices. I knew that Torreira would play. I knew that Willock would play. But Ainsley Maitland-Niles being picked, I suppose, isn't too surprising, but I'm so sick of not seeing Torreira as the base of the midfield. The amount of times that Torreira was ahead of Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Willock in that midfield I just don't understand. What are we trying to get from that midfield? It makes no sense to me why Emery has gone for that lineup in terms of the midfield, because he's exactly mirrored that of the league. He's mirrored the same type of players that we use. Maitland-Niles was the Guendouzi, Willock was the Willock or the Ceballos, and then Torreira played sort of the Xhaka role, which the Xhaka role is strange because Xhaka pushes forward and Guendouzi's actually caught him behind and Willock drops back, and there's fluidity to it for sure, and things change around, but the wrong players are playing the wrong roles. Torreira should be the deepest player, covering the midfield and shielding them, not being the most further forward or the furthest forward thinking player. I tweeted out halfway through the game or so that Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Willock were, there's no two ways about it, they were dreadful. Giving the ball away, Ainsley Maitland-Niles giving away the ball for that second goal was atrocious. And I mean, when you're on that stage and you're actually playing the position that you've said very publicly that is your role and that's the position you want to play in, you have to perform. And it doesn't matter what stage you're on, whether it's the Europa League against a team that comes from not in the bigger sides in Portugal, or whether it's a team at the top 6 of the Premier League. You are expected to perform, especially when you've come out and said what you said. And for me, AMN really didn't do that, and that is concerning. I'm really, really concerned about Mainsley's future at the club. But Willock, he's been sort of worrying me for the last few matches or so. He can't quite grasp the same amount of confidence that he had at the start of the season. I'm sure it is just a drop in his form. He's doing really, really well for the England under 21s as well. And sometimes he's quite overawing coming into the team and playing obviously very consistently and playing a lot of minutes when originally you weren't. And dips are going to happen for players of that age. So that doesn't concern me right now. And I hope that he can get out of this. But I think that's just one of those performances where Willock has to just put it behind him. But Maitland-Niles is someone that is become an established player in the team because of his time at right back. I know it's not his favoured position. He's not where he played tonight. But he's got enough minutes under his belt now for this first team across a couple or a few seasons that he really, really should be doing a bit better than that. Let's see what some of you guys are saying. Ashwin says, Guendouzi is my captain. Avon says, Emery has a horrible habit of setting up players to fail to make his point. AMN and Willock shouldn't have been in the middle together whatsoever. Vincent says, Tom today proved some players aren't ready for the starting 11. If Unai don't play them, we moan. If they don't perform, nobody criticises them. Everything is Unai agenda here. Let's talk about that then, because I think it's a fair point. There are players in that pitch that I thought didn't have the best of games. I thought that first half, other than the cross, Tierney didn't play great. I don't think in terms of the cross. Second half, he was much, much better. He definitely improved. He grew into that second half. But it goes to show that we can cry out for a player like Tierney, who I have all the hope in the world to become a really, really fantastic player. But first half, he was caught out a couple of times. He didn't really do that great against Edwards playing on that right-hand side. He was turned a couple of times and he didn't really get to do what he wanted to. But as I said, second half, he really, really did improve, and that was really, really good to see. Rob Holding got turned a couple of times in the first half as well, and he's been someone that we've been calling out again and again to be in the first team. And he's still young, but you have to highlight those areas where mistakes are made, and I think that he definitely needed to improve. It wasn't his strongest performance, Rob Holding, today, but we know that he's a lot better than that. And even Hector Bellerin at times sort of struggled. I think his fitness isn't there. I think we sort of saw the reason why he's not in the first team right now, because for me, that's not the performance of a player that I think is 100% match fit whatsoever. So I'm not too concerned about the lack of selection for Hector Bellerin at the moment, because I genuinely think they're being a bit cautious with him, and I think that showed tonight in his performance. Martinez, I mean, people have been calling out week on week saying that maybe he should be fighting Leno for that first team slot. Well, he made a couple of decent saves, but conceding 2 goals in the game, he didn't cover himself in glory for a couple of those, and maybe that's harsh. I certainly don't put if we'd have lost that game down to Martinez whatsoever, but he is obviously human, and sometimes you need to get a bit of perspective about certain players on the pitch. Mustafi, on the other hand, I liked him a lot. I liked Mustafi a lot. I thought he had a really, really positive game. The ball in the second half of Bellerin towards the end was exquisite. It was a fantastic pass. I'm really frustrated that he couldn't get that header on target at the end as well. But Mustafi is genuinely starting to show that, I mean, this guy is starting to really sort of push himself and say, I can take the criticism on the chin. I can take all the hate in the world. And whilst I still don't believe Mustafi is the guy to take us forward, players should be rewarded for good performances. And the players like Socrates and David Luiz, if they aren't going to perform well, then maybe the German can get some reprieve. I mean, it's unbelievable. As Craig says there, Mustafi is our best centre-back. I can't believe I'm saying this. Tommy says Mustafi played really good. It is a really weird situation to be in. And maybe, and this will sound harsh on Mustafi for sure, but maybe the fact that we're calling Mustafi as our best defender at the moment is more of a damning indictment on the other defenders that are in the team right now. Don One says Mustafi is playing well. We got to praise the players too when they are playing well. Carl Gordon says Pepe will solve Brexit. Let's talk about Nicola Pepe. Comes off the bench in the second half. I thought he would have come on a little bit earlier. Emery's really starting to go back on this changes thing in terms of second half substitution. He's still making some of those half-time ones, but the lateness of some of these subs, we sort of lacquer against Sheffield United. That's getting to me a little bit. But actually, when Pepe came on, he was great. He didn't really do too much wrong. Again, we've still got that classic Pepe desire to really try and do a little bit too much at times. But I mean, I'm really, really sort of splitting hairs here. The free kicks were fantastic. At the end of the day, like, yes, it's still frustrating to see that he hasn't scored from open play yet, but I think that will come with time. This will put so much more confidence into his game. After he scored that first free kick, you could clearly see on the pitch how much Pepe was really trying to run at the opposition defences. He was really trying to get in, do a little bit too much again. He was desperate to score from open play and he got caught in the box towards the end. But I mean, when you watch, and I don't watch it too often, but when you watch Soccer AM and they had the little bins in the corner of the goals, that free kick was top bins. It was absolutely fantastic. And the first one across the keeper on his near side was, or far side, sorry, was exquisite once again. So all the praise in the world for Nicola Pepe. I absolutely pray that this will be a huge trampoline for him to really sort of lift off from this moment, because he's desperately in need of confidence, and this will hopefully be that. And that sort of begs the question, what happens at the weekend in terms of who we actually line up in the front three? Because the other guy to talk about in the front line is, of course, Gabriel Martinelli. Youngster scored again. He's still very raw. I've put that tweet that will come out to absolutely bite me later on, when I said that he wasn't a centre forward, and I still stand by that. I don't think he is a centre forward. I think the role between a centre forward and a striker is different. I think he can play as a striker, as a sort of that poacher sort of style, and there's a lot of hope that maybe when Alba moves on later in life, that sounds like he's about 80, but when Alba does eventually move on, there is potential there. And Nketiah is obviously competition for that position. But I like Martinelli on the left-hand side. But as AO says there, he is rash. And he definitely was rash today. After the goal that he scored, there were times where he took shots on when he could have played a pass. He kept on the ball a little bit too long. But again, I am being a bit nitpicky right now. And I don't think that there's too much you can put on Martinelli in terms of criticism. Fantastic header, fantastic cross from Tierney as well to provide that goal. But then, obviously, from that, we conceded, and we're conceding too quickly. We're becoming too overconfident at times. We think it's going to be a stroll in the park, and we cannot fall into that trap. There's going to be games in the Europa League this season, especially when we get to the knockout phases, against tougher sides. And for me, again, the league form really concerns me, and I'm desperate for us to achieve Champions League football. And the Europa could be a viable option once again for us to push ourselves to get back into that Champions League. And we cannot be allowing ourselves to become too confident. I think that they've had two games against Frankfurt and against Standard Liège where they've had it, I wouldn't say comfortable, especially at the Frankfurt game, more so the Standard Liège game, but they can't get overconfident. They can't let this go to their heads. And I think today's game was a bit of a reality check. And for players like Martinelli, for players like Holding and Tierney and Smith Rowe and Willock and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, maybe it's really, really good that they get a reality check in this sense, and really, really good that actually we've seen players in the past, especially in the latter stage of the Arsene Wenger era, where we go into games with so much arrogance that we thought it'd be a walk in the park, and maybe actually this game is a bit of a reality check for them, a bit of hit on the head, and that will set them up in terms of confidence much better moving forwards. And I can't actually wait to see the games and see the reaction from these guys. This does then beg the question, how many of these players deserve to play in the first team? Does Kieran Tierney need to start? Yes, he 100% does need to start. 100% on Sunday. I will be fuming if I do not see Kieran Tierney in the starting lineup on Sunday. I'll be fuming if I don't see Martinelli get a few more minutes in the Premier League. Saka, I think, has done really, really well, but you can't put too much pressure on someone that young. I still don't think that Laka and Alba and Pepe are going to start at the weekend. Laka looked really, really frustrated tonight. He had a really, really frustrating game. I thought he was poor. He was only about a 5 out of 10 for me. If you want to call that harsh, fair enough. That's just my opinion. But I really think Laka struggled. He was frustrated. He couldn't get the opportunities that he wanted. He weren't committed in the way that I want him to be, where he's really full on chasing balls and really going for last ditch challenges. And he didn't sort of have that same desire, maybe because it's a Europa League game, but that's not the attitude that I want from someone like Lacazette, who I praise week on week as someone that I really have so much respect for. I want to see more from Lacazette, and he just didn't get it. And for that reason, I actually think that I would start Martinelli. There's an argument to say Martinelli or Saka on the left on Sunday. If it was Martinelli, I'd be pleased. If it was Saka, I wouldn't mind either. But I think that Lacazette still needs to come back from injury. M says he is coming back from injury. Give him some slack, and I am. But at the same time, I can't just give him some slack and say it wasn't a 5 out of 10 performance, because it was. But there was obviously the caveat that, yes, he is coming back from injury, and that is definitely a factor in one of the reasons why he didn't have the best of his games. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Last week, or rather on the podcast, the elephant in the room was Emery. Today, it certainly involves Emery, but it's not actually Emery. It's certainly the player that he left out of the starting lineup, and that is Mesut Ozil. Now, if I can get it up on the screen for you guys, because it's just so much more interactive for everyone here. Obviously, Mesut Ozil put out a tweet yesterday, which was him laughing, which is, it's always going to invite controversy. It's always going to invite the obvious, which is obviously, I mean, here you go. Here's the tweet. "You make me laugh," is what he says. It's really strange when a player as media savvy as Mesut Ozil puts out a tweet like that. And then later on, just before the game started, he put out another tweet saying, "Trained with this AFC legend this morning. Always a pleasure to see you, my bro. Best of luck for the match now from both of us." If I click this picture, is he? Yeah, it's from the training. Okay, so it's from the actual training that happened. It's interesting that he says that he trained with him this morning. Now, call me a bit mad and call me being a complete classic fan on social media and maybe reading into things too much. But when you're saying that you trained this morning and then he's not even in the squad, when there are players on the pitch like Emil Smith-Rowe, like Ainsley Maitland-Niles, which you would imagine Ozil should be ahead of them in the pecking order for a start, I'm really, really struggling with this situation. And I'll tell you for why. It's a really conflicting situation because for me, I've gone on record several times and said that at the end of the day, I would be quite happy for Ozil to move on because he's not getting minutes. When he does get minutes, it's not consistent enough, and especially in the big games away from home. And he's on a lot of money. Now, whilst that remains my opinion, I'm very much, and it's only my personality that I am this way, that people deserve to prove themselves. And the big issue that I have of Emery leaving him out is that there's no evidence being given to us that Ozil could prove us wrong. I will maintain that whenever I stand by something, I remember last season when I said that Nketiah and Willock do not look like they would make it at Arsenal. And they're doing their absolute best to prove me wrong. And I'm absolutely 100% grateful for it because I'm not cynical about that type of thing. I'm really not. I love having opinions about Arsenal. But trust me, I would love for my negative opinions to be proved wrong. And thankfully, Willock and Nketiah are going away to do that. The thing is, what frustrates me is when someone is not given that opportunity to do so, whilst they're still being paid a hell of a lot of money. And Karen Carney was the co-commentator. And whilst I'm at it, if you were watching the BT commentary, I was getting so frustrated with some of the things that were being said. I can't remember who was the main commentator, but he said something about how Pepe's his first free kick was from open play. And I couldn't believe, like, a free kick is not from open play. The one where Lacazette came to blows with their right back, I can't remember the name of their right back. When he came to blows with him and the head went in, they said that he didn't touch him. Now, I know that Lacazette definitely exaggerated the contact, but there was definitely contact there, and you can't really do what their player did. And I know that he didn't dive, but he just made the most of it. But I just think that in terms of the Ozil situation, is that I can't understand. And I've got off on a tangent now, but Karen Carney was saying that if Ozil was on the pitch, he'd be the one creating a lot more clear-cut chances. And I can't disagree with that because for me, Ozil is more creative than Smith-Rowe. He is more creative than Ceballos. He is more creative than Willock. He's more creative than Ainsley Maitland-Niles. And you can have the harshest opinion on Ozil, but you're naive if you're to say that any of those four players I've just mentioned are more creative than him, because they're not. And it would be naive of you, of someone like myself that actually wants Ozil to move on. It would be naive of me to turn around and say that Mesut Ozil is not more creative than those guys and wouldn't have provided us with more chances, because I'd be lying. I'd be lying for the sake of it. So that is a frustration for me. I wish that they were given the opportunity to prove themselves wrong. Let's get some of your thoughts. What do you think about the Ozil situation? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. We'll read some of them out here. I'm going to scroll through and try and find some. Pez Gooner says, actually thought Sebastian Guendouzi worked really well Ozil where Torreira was, and I think that we have a really great attacking midfield. You're right, we would have a fantastic attacking midfield. The problem is that Guendouzi, Sabas, and Ozil is quite open. It's really quite open. I don't think you would have the defence there. I'd be interested to see Torreira, Guendouzi, and Ozil together. I think that would be really, really interesting as a starting lineup. But I do think that Sabas and Guendouzi in that sort of 2 number 8 roles perform really, really well. The Torreira thing really confuses me with how far he pushes him forward. Olo says, what example does it set out to young players in the squad if you play Ozil and he isn't showing 100% commitment? Now, this thing obviously bothers a lot of people. The way that he's quite lackadaisical on the pitch, he's quite nonchalant, quite cavalier. And let's be honest, Pepe has that demeanour about him in games. He doesn't run back too much. He doesn't cover the right back as much as he should do. And he can look as if he's acting a bit, as I say, nonchalant on the pitch. But Ozil, because he's done it consistently for 3 years, 4 years, 5, 6 years. Wow, he's been here a long time. The amount of time he's been here and he has that style and demeanour, that does cause criticism. And it's fair enough. It does. And I would prefer my players to be running and busting a gut completely. But at the same time, I think the creativity that he does bring definitely adds something to the side. Let's see what somebody else is saying. Edward says, sell Ozil and break back Mkhitaryan, in my opinion. Interesting. It is funny how when a player leaves and you haven't seen him for a while, that you suddenly long for them to return. I'm not sure if Mkhitaryan would have changed things too much. I actually think that it's a bit of a blessing seeing him go, because it's meant that Unai is sort of forced into trying out Nelson and Willock and players like that in more advanced roles, and Martinelli as well. I don't think Martinelli would have got this many minutes. I don't think Nelson would have got this many minutes. And so I'm absolutely fine with Mkhitaryan not being here. Coop Dog says Ozil is overrated and lazy. I am glad that he is benched. He's not even benched at the moment. Razmik says, leave Ozil alone, champ. Get rid of Emery. Fair enough. I'm seeing where these lines are being drawn now. 50 says Ozil probably will not be paid the full 350 bags if he doesn't play. Probably a contractual decision. Again, we don't know the breakdown of his contract. So that could be something to do with it. Charlie says, I hate saying this, but I think our midfield is just as bad or sometimes worse than our defensive backline. And I can't disagree too much with that. There are a lot of issues with our midfield, and our front line is definitely carrying us through these games. Sailor V says, that's utterly disrespectful act by Emery. I can understand not starting him, but excluding him from the squad is something else. I think the biggest tell of this Ozil thing will be whether or not he starts on Sunday. If he does start, or rather, if he's in the squad on Sunday, then that goes to show that he wasn't being used in the Europa League because he wanted to use him in the Premier League. If he's not in the squad on Sunday, then I'm sorry, but then that's, I mean, there's no more evidence that you could possibly use to confirm it that Ozil is in fact definitely not in the manager's ideas whatsoever, no matter what he says, no matter what Emery says, no matter what Ozil says in interviews. That is it. Dude says, you cannot compare Pepe to Ozil. I've seen Pepe running back. You even saw him doing it against Sheffield United. And again, I said that in my comment. I said that he does do it. He just doesn't do it as much. And again, remember that this guy is a winger and he's not a more central player, and he's not the responsibility of a central player, especially a number 10, to track back as much as it is a wide player. I did actually do a video, a tactical breakdown, way months ago at the start of the season, on actually looking at the defensive positives that Pepe brings to Arsenal, and I'm a bit disappointed because of the video that I made. I'm not seeing the things that are highlighted. I'm not seeing the things that I saw him do at Lille. Maybe it's confidence, maybe it's just a new system. I don't know, but he's not doing as much in terms of going back. So I still stand by my point, but I agree with you. It's difficult to compare them in some senses, but it's more the demeanour I was talking about, the way they walk around the pitch sometimes. Nico says, Tom, in regards to the drama saga of Emery and Ozil, I think both of them are not suited to Arsenal as a whole. Ozil is not the player he once was, and Emery is not coaching a team that is confident. I can't disagree too much with that. Olo says Ozil wouldn't be being frozen out completely without the support of Raul, Edu and co. That's a really, really interesting point, Olo. I genuinely hadn't considered that. If he is being left out and Edu and Raul thought that that was the wrong decision, Edu wants to be involved with the football side of things quite a lot. And in that case, I am equally as confused as you that maybe they have sanctioned this decision by the manager. If they haven't, or if they're not okay with it, then they should definitely say something, or something should definitely be done about it. But I think that's a fantastic point that you've raised there, Olo. Adam says, yeah, the midfield are disjointed and unorganised. Positional tactics for midfield are so poor and chaotic. Torreira is our best defensive player, yet he's playing far up the pitch. Torreira playing up the pitch is a really, really confusing situation, because we know, and I've said this several times, that he is best either as a pivot in terms of two defensive pivots like him and Guendouzi, or him and Xhaka, if you want to go there. But for me, I am happy to see him tried out as a solo deep-lying midfielder, as a defensive midfielder, with two in front of him, or with Guendouzi and Ozil, or Guendouzi and Willock, or Guendouzi and Ceballos. I think you can't really take Guendouzi out of the team, because he is brilliant. He is so good. I mean, he was brilliant when he came on today. Really drove forward. He has the shortest fuse of any player I've seen in a long time. He really, really doesn't like it when he gets fouled. He doesn't like it when his mates get fouled. And he's straight in there, and I love that. I really, really do love that about Guendouzi. I really, really do. Salvador says Torreira in the holding midfield role. Olo says love Guendouzi. Sashillo says was about to subscribe until you said Xhaka. Whoa! I'm sorry that I said Xhaka. It's not my fault. He's a team. He's in the team. I'm sorry. Anonymous says every fan wants to see Ozil defending when our defenders can't do that. It's funny is the irony there. Solo says Emery out, Torreira as a number 10 is ridiculous. Plus, he insulted him by saying he wanted to sign Fabinho. I don't think that's insulting. I completely agree with you that it's ridiculous to play him as that high up, but I don't agree that it's insulting. Managers want specific players, and if you can't get those players, you'll go down your list, and that's an obvious thing. I mean, imagine if we had got a Fabinho, that would be insane. It's incredibly frustrating when we hear these stories that Arsenal could have got there, or they wanted them but couldn't get them. But yeah, that would have been great. Celebi says, Tom, I rate Smith Rowe higher than Willock. What are your thoughts? I don't right now. I rate Willock higher than Smith Rowe. I think that Smith Rowe needs a lot more time. I think that Smith Rowe January should be loaned out for the rest of the season to a team where he's guaranteed minutes, maybe in the Championship. That might be a good move for him. I don't want him going abroad to Bundesliga again. I know that he was injured, but I think I'd just rather see him getting some minutes in the English Championship. But I think that is something that he needs. In terms of how well he played tonight, I thought he was okay. I thought he did some really, really good stuff. I was watching the game with someone, and they were constantly saying that they're not passing to him. They're just not passing to him. And I started to watch it a little bit more, and actually there was some credence in. They really didn't like passing to Smith Rowe in this game, but there were some instances where he could have done a little bit better. He lost the ball in certain occasions. The shot that he had on the half volley was a difficult chance, but he should really be hitting the target in that situation. And there was also one where he took the shot. It's a fantastic turn in the first half when he spun round. Should have got the shot off a little bit earlier before the block came in, but again, that was a really, really good move. But again, I think that he needs game time. And I think that in January, when obviously the Europa League games that come around are going to be against more competitive teams, where we're going to be using more of our first team players, then maybe Smith Rowe needs to go out and get some really, really important minutes on loan. His fitness is always going to be an issue. And so getting minutes regularly, week in, week out, is really, really important for the young guy. Charles says Pepe is amazing, but we need Partey or Ndidi in this midfield. I mean, transfers, we could go on all day. Don't worry, January is approaching, guys. There will be more tactical breakdowns and reactions to transfer links. Don't you worry. Salvador says we rate the talent. We have to play 4-2-3-1. Alba wide and Lacazette up top. Ozil number 10. Saka primary backup at left mid, and Martinelli backup as a striker. I mean, I can't disagree with that. I think that we've always wanted to see the lineup with Pepe, Alba, and Laka, with Ozil behind, and Guendouzi and Torreira playing there with Tierney and Bellerin and Holding, and maybe Louise or Chambers and Leno. That is the best lineup for me. But I mean, is it going to happen? We don't know. Yannick Max, stop tempting me with transfers, Yannick. I want to sign Szoboszlai. Trust me, I love him. I love that Hungarian guy, but I just don't think we're going to sign him. But I'd love it. I really, really would love it if we signed him. But stop talking about transfers. We're months away still. We got Christmas. We've got my birthday before transfers, and that's more important. Ralph says, Ceballos is a deeper player than Ozil and lacks the vision and guile that Ozil does. Good word. Ceballos has more drive and great at creating pockets in deeper areas, more Santi than Ozil, and would like to see both play. Ceballos, when he came on, he just did that classic Ceballos thing, dropped deep, took the ball, took it forward, did a couple of weird Ceballos things like that free kick that went absolutely nowhere. You see that ball that he put against the Sheffield United game where he just put it out to the left and there was no one there. He does a little bit of a brain fart sometimes, Ceballos, but ultimately he's a class player. And whilst he's got those errors in him, they will be ironed out. And I pray that he stays at Arsenal next season. But yeah, he does some weird things. But I completely agree with you. And it's a fantastic comment, Raf. Again, Raf there is the perfect example of the reasons why I love some of you guys in our chat week in, week out, because some of the comments that we get in these shows are fantastically analytical and they're really, really spot on and on the mark. And even though we disagree sometimes, even the stuff when you disagree, they're well worded, and I really, really enjoy reading through these comments. Peter Renner says, evening, Tom, mate. What a roller coaster. All the ups and downs. Weak people may have had a heart attack after that. It's only Europa, mate. I think panic attack, maybe. Heart attack might be going a little bit too far. Yoni Max says, Niangala and Janja. Stop it, Yannick. Stop going on about transfers. Avon says, do we think Ceballos will stay at the end of his loan? I'm leaning, I was 50-50 when he joined. I'm 60-40 in favour of him staying now, but that can change. Willie886 says, Tom, can you please, let's talk about how sloppy our approach was to the game, then drool over Pepe's masterclass. Emery is actually doing my head in with this stupid positioning of torture. I mean, you can replace the word of torture with Torreira. I mean, it's a stupid positioning of the Uruguayan. We've talked a little bit about how sloppy we were in terms of our build-up. I don't think that we can go on too much more about how sloppy we were in those situations. It was poor. It was frustrating. We needed to do more. I tweeted out saying that actually if you want to follow us at the Gooner Talk TV on Twitter, I tweeted out saying that it was such a contrast between the first two games to now. And it's funny that now this Europa League game comes after a period where we've had some frustrating games against Sheffield United and Manchester United, and we've had the international break. And it's not just the first team that looks like they've down tools. It's the entire setup, like the entire, even to the B team that we had so much hope for in terms of their fluidity and their dynamism and how positive they were playing in the Europa League and the cup games. To go from that to this really does show sort of a real dip in the mentality and the proactiveness of our team. And that's a really, really, really big worry. So hopefully moving forwards, we will see that change. I'm going to wrap things up there. Thank you ever so much, people, for tuning in this evening. I hope you really enjoyed the show. If you have, please drop a like. Please subscribe if you're new. I saw someone saying they weren't going to subscribe because I mentioned Xhaka. How harsh is that? I mentioned Xhaka's name and people don't want to sub to the channel. It's unbelievable. But yes, there will be, I know there wasn't an Eyes of the Opposition show for people who don't know what that is. It's a show in which I get the perspective of an opposition fan or writer or journalist, and they come on the show and they answer some questions that I've got for them. So that will be out hopefully tomorrow. I'm doing it with the Back of the Net podcast, if all things go well. He's actually sent me a message saying congrats on the win. So there you go. He's a nice guy. But yeah, the Back of the Net podcast are going to be here tomorrow in the Eyes of the Opposition show, talking about the game against Crystal Palace. I'm going to be at the game on Sunday, which is great for me, but unfortunately it does mean that the Raw Reaction show will have to be slightly delayed, probably be out later in the evening when I get back. I did that, if you haven't seen it, when I went to the North London Derby, I did that that sort of match day vlog thing where I videoed a few things of the day and then edited it all together and put it out. If you like that and you enjoyed that, let me know in the comments, because I will try and put something else together. I'm going with a few people who aren't very, let's say, camera savvy. They're not the best fans of being on camera, so they might not want to do that, which may restrict how much I'm doing, but I will try and put something together But unfortunately, there will be no raw reaction straight after the game because I'm going to be there. But hopefully I can get something out for you a little bit later on in the day. Of course, the podcast will be on Monday. We're going to have a debutant on Monday as well, which is exciting. Again, I'm really trying to get more people, more of you guys on the show. And to do that, I've had people contact me. I always leave my LinkedIn in the description if you want to contact me through there. Again, on Twitter at the Gooner Talk TV, you can contact me through there as well. And basically what we're doing is if you want to come on the show, very, very simple, DM me, chat to me, and then send in basically a 1 to 2 minute video of your reaction to the last game that we played, just so we can sort of get a sense of how you are on camera and stuff like that. And the only reason I do that is because we've had people come on in the past and it's not been great, and I'm trying to want to make this as great for you as possible. So yeah, just if you're interested in coming on the show for a podcast with the boys, lead judges, Wayne, Drew, and all that lot, then get in touch, DM me at the Gooner Talk TV on Twitter, and we will try and sort that out for you. I really hope you've enjoyed this half an hour, 40 minutes or so, talking about that. Adam says he's off to watch Birdcat Wonderland. Go watch them. They do some really, really good stuff as well. So please do go check them out. But thank you ever so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you very, very soon tomorrow for the Eyes of the Opposition show with the Back of the Net podcast ahead of the Crystal Palace game. And if you've enjoyed everything, subscribe, turn those notifications on, and give the show a darn like. Not if you breathe oxygen, because someone else says that. What's his name? But if you've enjoyed the show, give it a like. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.